Welcome to my channel Alien Signal. The metal floor beneath Lena's knees vibrated softly as the alien warship drifted through the darkness of deep space. Cold blue lights glowed from the ceiling, casting long shadows across the chamber. Around her stood towering creatures with silver skin and glowing yellow eyes. Their armor clicked as they moved, their sharp claws scraping against the polished floor. Lena kept her head lowered, though her wrists burned from the magnetic restraints locked around them. She was only 19 years old, and she was the last surviving human aboard the captured Earth defense cruiser Valiant. Outside the chamber window, stars drifted endlessly. Somewhere far behind them, Earth was burning. The alien empire known as the Xarvok Dominion had arrived without warning 6 months earlier. Their ships emerged from dark space near Jupiter, larger than cities and armed with weapons humanity couldn't understand. Entire fleets vanished in minutes. Nations collapsed. Colonies went silent. The Xarvok didn't negotiate. They conquered. And now, they celebrated. At the center of the chamber stood the alien commander, General Vayakar. Taller than the others, he wore black armor etched with crimson symbols. A scar ran across one glowing eye, proof of battles fought long before humans ever reached the stars. He stared at Lena like a scientist examining an insect. "So," Vayakar said through the translator drone floating beside him, "this is the species that called itself dominant." The surrounding aliens laughed. Harsh clicking sounds echoed through the chamber. Lena remained silent. Vayakar circled her slowly. "Your people fought harder than expected," he admitted. "Primitive, emotional, violent, but ultimately weak." One of the officers stepped forward. "General, the human female should be dissected. Their biology may reveal military advantages." Another laughed. "Look at her trembling. Predators. These creatures are prey." More laughter spread across the room. Lena slowly lifted her head. Blood stained the side of her face, but her green eyes remained calm. "You think humans are predators?" she asked quietly. The chamber fell silent for a moment. Vayakar narrowed his glowing eyes. "Are you denying it? Your history is filled with war, slaughter, and extinction." Lena looked directly at him. "No," she whispered. "I'm saying you don't understand what a real predator looks like." The aliens laughed again. Even Vayakar smiled slightly. "And what," he asked, "could possibly frighten the mighty Xarvok Dominion?" Lena's lips curled into a faint smile. "Humans." 3 days earlier, the Valiant had been dying. Warning sirens screamed through smoke-filled corridors as Captain Elias Ward dragged Lena toward the escape pods. "Move," he shouted. The ship shook violently. Somewhere behind them, steel exploded inward as alien plasma fire ripped through the hull. Lena stumbled. "Captain, we can still help the others. There are no others left." His voice cracked when he said it. That terrified her more than the explosions. The Valiant had carried nearly 400 crew members. By the time the Xarvok boarding parties arrived, fewer than 30 remained alive. Captain Ward shoved a rifle into Lena's hands. "If they capture you," he said, "don't tell them anything." "What about you?" He gave a tired smile. "I'll buy you time." Before she could respond, the corridor behind them erupted in gunfire. Dark figures emerged from the smoke. The Xarvok, towering, armored, relentless. Captain Ward turned and opened fire. "Run." Lena obeyed. She sprinted through the corridor as blaster fire lit the walls behind her. She reached the escape bay, but before she could launch, a massive impact threw her across the room. Pain exploded through her skull. Then darkness swallowed everything. When she awoke aboard the alien ship, she expected torture. Instead, they questioned her endlessly. How many colonies did humanity possess? What weapons remained? Where were Earth's hidden fleets? Lena answered nothing. The Xarvok grew increasingly confused by humanity. According to their scans, Humans were physically weaker than most advanced species. Their technology was crude compared to Xarvok engineering. Yet humans kept fighting, even after impossible losses. Especially after impossible losses. That disturbed the aliens. Because most civilizations surrendered once defeat became certain. Humans became more dangerous. Vayakar eventually grew fascinated with her. Every day he visited the chamber, studying her reactions. "You display irrational aggression," he observed during one interrogation. Lena smirked weakly. "You invaded our home." "Yes. And defeat is inevitable. That's usually when humans become creative." The translator drone struggled to process her tone. Vayakar tilted his head slightly. "You speak as though your species still has hope." Lena looked toward the stars outside the window. "You've only seen soldiers," she said softly. The general frowned. "I don't understand." "You will." Far away, hidden beneath the frozen oceans of Europa, something ancient awakened. A transmission echoed through buried military bunkers. "Priority Omega. Earth had fallen. Release authority granted." Deep underground, lights flickered on for the first time in decades. Machines began to move. Humanity had prepared for extinction long ago. Because humans understood something no alien civilization ever had. A cornered predator is dangerous. But a cornered human, that was something else entirely. Back aboard the Xarvok flagship, Lena sat chained inside the observation chamber when alarms suddenly erupted across the vessel. Red lights flashed violently, alien officers shouted in panic. Vayakar stormed into the room. "Report." A frightened technician spoke rapidly in the alien language before the translator converted it. "Unknown vessels emerging from dark space." "How many?" The technician hesitated. "Thousands." Vayakar froze. "That is impossible. Human fleet records show only 17 surviving warships." Another officer interrupted. "These are not registered human military signatures." The chamber trembled as distant explosions echoed through the ship. Lena slowly smiled. Vayakar turned toward her. "What have you done?" "I told you," she whispered. "You don't know humans." The main view screen activated automatically. And every alien in the chamber went silent. The ships outside were unlike anything the Xarvok had encountered. Black hulls. No lights. No insignias. Ancient Earth symbols painted across their armored surfaces. The Ghost Fleet. Warships humanity had secretly constructed after first discovering evidence of hostile alien civilizations decades earlier. Hidden from governments. Hidden from allies. Built only for the worst possible scenario. Total extinction war. One officer stared at the screen in horror. "Those ships, they're ignoring damage." He was right. Xarvok plasma cannons tore through sections of the human vessels, but they kept advancing anyway. Some rammed directly into alien cruisers before detonating in nuclear fireballs. Human voices flooded intercepted communication channels. Not military commands. Not organized formations. Just rage. Pure, terrifying rage. For Earth. Burn them all. No surrender. Vayakar watched in stunned silence as one of his destroyers exploded after dozens of tiny human boarding pods crashed through its hull. Moments later, the alien ship went dark. Then exploded from within. The general slowly turned toward Lena. "These tactics are madness." She nodded. "Yeah," she said quietly. "That's the point." Hours passed. The battle became slaughter. The Xarvok had conquered hundreds of worlds across centuries, but every species they encountered valued survival above all else. Humans didn't. Not when angry. Again and again, crippled human ships launched suicide attacks. Boarding parties fought even after suffering fatal wounds. Civilian freighters packed with explosives rammed alien carriers without hesitation. The Xarvok began retreating. For the first time in recorded Dominion history, the Xarvok felt fear. Inside the command deck, chaos erupted. We're losing the outer defense lines. Human ships have breached Sector 7. They're targeting life support systems. Vayakar clenched his fists. How can one primitive species fight like this? No one answered, because no one understood. Except Lena. She stared at the burning battlefield displayed across the screen. Tears formed in her eyes. Not from sadness. From recognition. Humanity had unleashed its oldest instinct. The instinct that once allowed fragile primates to survive on a brutal world filled with larger predators. Persistence. Humans were never the strongest species on Earth. They were simply the ones willing to go farther than anything else. Farther through pain, farther through fear, farther through loss. The Xarvok believed apex predators ruled through power. Humans ruled through endurance. Suddenly, another explosion rocked the ship. The lights flickered. A terrified officer looked toward Vayakar. General, human boarding teams have entered the flagship. Gunfire echoed faintly through distant corridors. Then screams. Alien screams. Vayakar grabbed Lena violently. Call them off. She laughed weakly. You still don't get it. More explosions thundered nearby. The chamber doors burst open moments later. 3 humans stormed inside wearing damaged combat armor stained with blood. One carried a flamethrower. Another limped badly, barely able to stand. But their eyes terrified the aliens. Because there was no fear left inside them. Only fury. The lead soldier aimed his rifle directly at Vayakar. Step away from her. The alien general slowly released Lena. For the first time since arriving in Earth's solar system, Vayakar obeyed a human command. The soldier cut Lena's restraints. You okay? He asked. She nodded weakly. Captain Ward. The soldier lowered his eyes. He didn't make it. Pain crossed Lena's face, but only for a moment. There would be time to mourn later. If humanity survived. Suddenly, Vayakar spoke. You would destroy yourselves just to defeat us. The human soldier stared at him coldly. No, he replied. We'll destroy you first. The escape from the flagship became chaos. Human boarding teams flooded the corridors while alien forces retreated in disarray. Fires spread across entire decks. As Lena and the soldiers reached a shuttle bay, she glanced back one final time. Vayakar still stood inside the burning chamber. Watching. Thinking. For the first time in his long military career, the alien commander understood the truth. Humans were not the strongest species. Nor the smartest. Nor the most advanced. But they possessed something far more dangerous. A willingness to become monsters when survival demanded it. The shuttle launched moments before the Xarvok flagship exploded behind them in blinding white fire. Silence filled the cabin afterward. The surviving humans simply stared out the windows at the battlefield. Thousands of ships burned across space. And yet, beyond the wreckage, more human vessels were arriving. From Mars. From Titan. From hidden stations buried in asteroids. Humanity had not died. It had awakened. 2 years later, the Xarvok Dominion officially surrendered. No one expected it to happen so quickly. Entire alien fleets vanished from human-controlled territory. Border worlds were abandoned overnight. The once mighty conquerors retreated beyond known space. Historians across the galaxy would later debate what truly defeated them. Human weapons, human strategy, human numbers. But survivors of the war knew the answer. Fear. The Xarvok realized humanity could never truly be conquered. Because humans treated extinction like an insult. And insults only made them fight harder. On Earth, cities slowly rose from ashes. Children returned to rebuilt schools. Ships filled the skies once more. And high above the recovering planet, Lena stood aboard an orbital station watching Earth turn beneath her. A young officer approached quietly. Do you ever think they'll come back? Lena remained silent for a long moment. Then she looked toward the stars. Maybe, she said, The officer frowned nervously. Does that worry you? Lena remembered Vayakar's horrified expression during the battle. She remembered the burning fleets. The rage. The unstoppable fury of humanity unleashed. A faint smile crossed her face. No, she whispered. It worries them. Thank you for listening. Subscribe for more cinematic science fiction stories.